Hey, everybody, Kevin here with Pursuing Pixels, and welcome back to another edition of Save It for the Cast. And as always here, we're going to be getting to the video game chit-chat between Randall, John, and I in just a little bit. And just a heads up, we're not veering into basketball territory so much this week, but we are veering into pretty much exclusively Elden Ring territory. We don't get, I think John and Randall even mentioned at the top of the conversation that we might get into spoiler stuff, and maybe some people are pickier than I am about spoilers, but at least as someone who's not really playing Elden Ring and has no plans to play it really, but I'm pretty, I can be a little touchy about spoilers. I definitely like to go into a game kind of blind or fresh or whatever, especially if it's something that I know I want to play. So at least from my perspective, I feel like it's a pretty spoiler-free conversation, but it's pretty much all Elden Ring chit-chat once we end Dark Souls and just all that. We go into other territory as well, but definitely a bit of an Elden Ring cast coming up once we toss the ball over to Randall, John, and I. But I did want to give a shout out to, we don't really talk about it all that much on the podcast here, but we've got our PP Potpourri, Pursuing Pixels Potpourri. We used to call it kind of a book club. Now I'm kind of changing it because basically what we do is on our itch.io page, we pick 5 free-to-play or name your price or browser playable games every week. Basically, just 5 games that you can play without spending any money, or you can donate to the developer on itch.io or purchase it. Name your price, basically. You can go about it that way if you like. But we just hit our 40th week. I think we're actually on week 42 now, but since we're picking 5 games every week, that's 200 games that we keep cataloging every week. Like I consolidate them once we hit like a batch of 100, then I put all the individual like week batches. They're basically just collections on our itch.io page. I'll put those all into like, okay, here's weeks 1 through 20 with all of the first 100 games. So I've got those first 2 batches of 100, so 200 games plus the next couple of weeks, and we release those or announce those games every Thursday. And I try to be pretty on top of that as far as like getting it out first thing in the morning. But regardless, we're always checking out 5 awesome like free to play games every week. Not free to play because I that terminology, I always think of like Genshin Impact or even like Rocket League or some of the newer like that free to play structure where I'm talking more like stuff. You can just go on and play either Game Jam stuff or basically a lot of the games that like I tend to talk about on some of these like smaller episodes, or even some of the games from the Pursuing Pixels James Jam Game Gam have even made an appearance, and probably a few more will as well. But I did also want to give a quick shout out to some other stuff that we've been doing over on our live streams lately, which haven't been necessarily on like a schedule per se, but we've been doing some scheduled events, if you will, where we basically do like a live stream and check the game out, like a let's play of the game, and also like kind of an interview. Like it's not an interview per se where we're not sitting down to like just discuss and like ask questions. It's kind of like a let's play and chat is sort of what I've been calling them. But we've done a bunch of cool games lately, and we have a few more coming down the pipeline too. But I just recently did almost a full playthrough, at least of the first 4 worlds. It was like almost like a 3.5-4 hour stream of Speer DX, and I'm going to be uploading these to the YouTube channel as well. But basically, we just sat down with our pal Ando from OSAT Games and played through the first 100 levels of Speer DX while chatting about the game, and then also did a stream of this game called Germinal. It's an upcoming precision platformer that, like, at first glance you might be like, oh, here's another kind of Celeste looking precision platformer. Like, it just has kind of like a similar pixel art resolution or whatever, but the mechanics, it's still a precision platformer as well, so it's like it definitely got some similarities, but the mechanics are just really cool. You basically have like this like jetpack, kind of like the Flood jetpack in Mario Sunshine, and you basically can use that either as like a hover pack or a double jump or both. You're kind of like basically managing your like water resources, or it kind of refills on its own. You don't have to like refill the actual jetpack, but like it refills when you land, kind of downwell style. But like you're constantly like, okay, I gotta hover like all the way across and then use my jump at the last second, because like even if you just have a little bit of water left in the tank, you can still use your jump, but you can't do a double jump. Well, you can do a double jump, but you can't do a triple jump, if you will. You can't jump twice with the jetpack. So it's constantly just kind of managing the amount of water you have, and like, okay, can I clear that gap? Do I jump first and then hover? Do I hover then jump? It's just such a great, tightly designed game, and there's a lot of really nice touches that I probably wouldn't have found if I wasn't doing this kind of like developer interview playthrough while we played the game. But like you can kind of play like a hard mode version of the levels by like rescuing your cat, or like this cat in like the opening screen, or the opening level, and then like in every subsequent level there'll be like a little cat bed that the cat's like waiting there for you, and you can scoop it up, and then if you take damage or die or whatever, and it's kind of one hit kill, precision platformer style, and the cat will just teleport back to the bed. So you basically just, like, if you want the extra challenge, it's like, okay, can you bring this cat all the way from point A to point B? And it's just the mechanics and the movement just feels so expressive and so fun to play. And it was just a blast playing that and chatting with the developers of that one. And then also probably the most recent one we did, at least at the time of recording this, was Curse Crackers from Who the Bell Toils. I always like get that name mixed up or wrong, but Curse Crackers nonetheless from Color Grave Games. They made a previous game called Prodigal that I checked out. Both games have very much like a Game Boy Color aesthetic to it. Prodigal is more of like a top-down Zelda style dungeon crawler. There's a little more to it. Like there's kind of some like, you can have like relationships, like a little bit of Stardew Valley influence in there, maybe a little bit too, but beyond Stardew Valley, but just to pick like the most obvious examples. But otherwise it's like Curse Crackers here is like a side-scrolling precision platformer that again really leans into that Game Boy Color aesthetic. It's got this like soft kind of like pastel pixel art, these like purples and pinks and greens and teals. It's just got such a cool just such a cool art style and aesthetic. And like, even though they're going for that Game Boy Color vibe and feel, they're not like totally married to that. Like it's still in widescreen and it's still got like various they're not just saying, okay, it's got to be the Game Boy Color aspect ratio and this and that. They're kind of like fudging some things here and there, but still like it's kind of got that Shovel Knight feel of like, okay, it feels like how I remember those Game Boy Color games feeling, or those NES games feeling like Shovel Knight did. Like at least for me, like I always tend, or I shouldn't say always, but I tend to prefer the games that kind of lean into the retro nostalgia, but give you those just make you feel like this is how I remember loving those old retro games, and not necessarily, because sometimes I fire up those retro games and I'm like, man, this game is either way harder than I remembered, or just way more frustrating or tedious or annoying or whatever you want to call it. Some of those retro games, as much as I love them, they can be a little bit janky at times. So it's kind of fun to play a more modern take. So yeah, all three of these games, and we've done a few more developer interview play-in chats, whatever you want to call them. And we got a few more coming down the pipeline too. Some folks that we've actually had on the podcast before. Kevin Cole is the next one I've got on the docket. Our buddy Matt Glanville, Crowbar Ska. We're planning on doing one with him, although he just had a baby, so it might be a little while before we're able to sync up on that, because I'm sure he's got more pressing priorities at the moment. And then we're hoping to sync up with our buddy Blabber of Gun Rounds fame and a bunch of other games, Shrine of Cards from the Pursuing Pixels James Jam Game Jam as well. One of my favorites from the Game Jam. But yeah, I've done enough rambling here at this point, I think. Already way more than I anticipated. And I didn't even talk about the mechanics in Speer DX. You're basically just like, arcade single screen precision puzzle platformer where you're throwing a spear at the wall to basically like climb the wall. You can have like one spear at a time, and by the end of the game you're like throwing the spear into like these goopy honey walls, so it's like slowly sliding down the wall. It doesn't just stick in place, and you're having to time your movement and your jumps, and you're picking up portals and moving them around, and it gets really puzzly. Like at first it feels very like precision-y, and you're just like, okay, I just gotta nail these maneuvers, and then you're like, okay, wait, I gotta solve these levels and nail these maneuvers. It's just so cool. It's one of the best games I've played in a while. Truly a huge fan. I loved Go-Go Pogo Girl from OSAT Games, Ando as well, but Speer, and especially this new version, Speer DX, which adds a bunch of new levels and a bunch of like really nice, like just slick polish, quality of life improvements. But yeah, I really can't recommend all these games enough, and it's been so fun to like sit down and actually do these like live play sessions while I get a little insight from the developers and maybe even some tips and tricks. Like I never would have found that cat secret. I shouldn't say never, but I definitely wouldn't have found it while checking out the demo for Germinal. But just so cool. I'm really looking forward to doing more stuff like that. So definitely stay tuned. I'll be keeping posted on that front for sure. But yeah, as always, you can find us on the internet at pursuingpixels.com. And I'm going to toss the ball over to Randall, John, and I for some Elden Ring. And in the meantime, we will catch you next week. Take care. So yeah, why don't we talk some more AAA action?
Hey everybody, welcome to the Elden Ring cast. This is your host, John Hines, here today with Kevin Portelli.
Hey.
And Randall Nolery. those classic Elden Ring noises as From Software beeps and bloops.
Hey, you're getting a rare save it for the cast recorded after the cast. So this is what you get.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure we had like all of our focus for the first meaningful recording.
Anytime Elden Ring or basically I feel like anytime we can get sidetracked on just about any game, because I feel like almost any episode we record I'm like, do we have enough here to talk about? And then like by the time I'm like looking at the clock like, wrap it up, we gotta wrap it up, guys.
We've hit our marks.
So yeah, we got everything else out of the way for the episode, and it's Elden Ring time now.
Oh yeah, and I figured we'd get put a spoiler tag like right at the beginning.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into some spoilers, but I'm also want to defer to Randall because I don't want to spoil him on anything that's happening, so I'm not going to take the reins on any lore talk in Elden Ring.
And to be clear, you haven't like beaten the game yet, right? So we're not getting into like end game or anything. So spoilers. So like don't go into this knowing we're not like talking about the end of the game.
For the
or anything.
first third of Elden Ring, maybe
for the first 300 hours for John.
I'm at 140 hours. At
my
this
man.
Point. Oh my God,
that's crazy, man.
Oh, good Lord, and
it's crazy. Randall's over here. I've had 10 hours in the last month.
Yeah, I only put an extra 70 in that same time.
I would if I could.
Too good.
It's too good. Like I know that's not a new thing to say, but Elden Ring's a fucking good game.
Oh, it's amazing.
Holy shit.
It's incredible.
And like I feel like I've gotten like, through several major story beats, and like I'm still like I feel like I'm so powerful and like so over leveled for like the opening areas.
Sure.
And then I unlock a new area and it's like, oh cool, a new enemy that can kill me in one hit. And I was like, how does this keep happening? How do they keep doing this? Like this game has so much content and so much like of that like logarithmic scale of how much stronger enemies get compared to the opening of the game, but like it always feels satisfying and it always feels tense, and like the pacing of this game, which is enormous, is
that's
so
the
good.
thing that's the most impressive to me. Like, other than the fact that like I'm not as shocked that you like it as much, John, but I feel like this isn't like the game that I would immediately think like, hey, Randall's gonna dive into this and love it. So like I'm intrigued by that. And then by the fact of like the scope of the game and how well it's like, I just can't even imagine like trying to pace something like that out, Like even a 3-hour movie, the pacing of that feels really like can be brutal. And that's like something that you have full control over as a director, in theory, but like as a player, like you can do anything essentially. It's kind of just crazy. It's really impressive to me.
I guess
that's the most intriguing element to me.
If I know going in, like I knew going in, Elden Ring's, this open world thing, and the comparisons to Breath of the Wild and other open world games were already happening before it even released, right? From reviewers and whoever else. And like, I knew that going in, like, okay. And then, playing it, John mentions, the scale of the enemies and the difficulty within, but, what's great is, Elden Ring does what Breath of the Wild does, what Xenoblade does, where there's these crazy over-leveled enemies that also are roaming in these early areas. You're like, I'm not fucking with this guy right now. But, like, they're there, and that makes the world feel more lively. And then...
It really does,
you grind, or, you don't even grind actively. Like, you're exploring, which is its own gameplay in and of itself, and you happen to be grinding along the way because the game is built really well. And then you go back, and that very scary enemy that was at the beginning is now somebody you can topple and, like... pretty easily, and it's like and that feels amazing, and there's just a lot of that
I think you just hit it there, that you're when you're grinding you're also exploring. I think that's a huge, again, obviously I haven't played the game, but like when it comes to other games, it's like as long as the grinding doesn't feel grindy, it feels fun, and it's fun to like be like, oh shit, I just got destroyed by that whatever. Like, I'm not going that way. But then it's like fun to go back later.
The grinding is satisfying. It's even the grinding is satisfying.
So a thing that like I think was a topic that I wanted to bring up like when we were planning that we would do like a kind of dedicated Elden Ring cast. And when I was talking about Death's Door and like how that like the level design in that game, you know, had a lot of like it was very shortcut based, and that is such a first half of Dark Souls like level design, which does not really appear in any like major way after the first half of Dark Souls. Like after the second half of Dark Souls 1, you get the Lord Vessel, which allows you to warp from bonfire to bonfire. So you're no longer going through this interconnected world that like, you know, you learn to memorize where everything is and where every shortcut is, because you no longer have to go through large sections of the map. You have like these little like quick points of navigation that you've unlocked. But once you get the Lord Vessel in Dark Souls 1, and then as an automatic thing you unlock in every successive game after that, like it then changes the way that levels are designed. Because then you are basically just running a gauntlet until the next checkpoint. And then you can always teleport to the next checkpoint and start from there instead of like building. Like that's
the game in and of itself, if you want it to be. Like just running and seeing another point of grace, or a site of grace.
But that changes the gameplay of the game. Yeah. Like so, Dark Souls 1 is something that the first half of it is completely unlike any other Souls game, because that feature just isn't it. Like that very granular and narrow scope of the early game
for real.
is so like unique to the first half of the first Dark Souls game. And like a thing that I appreciate is that like in say Dark Souls 3, where like I was just like fucking off and running past batches of enemies, being like, I'm going to get outside your aggro zone and I'm just skipping this section and getting to the next bonfire. But like that, I felt like I was cheating when I was doing that in Dark Souls 3, whereas in Elden Ring, I'm like, no, this is a viable strategy.
It is.
Like,
it absolutely is.
If I can't make my way through this one path, I can make my way around. And like, there is so much like. They have planned for every route. Like you are never outsmarting From Software in Elden Ring, because they're like, oh, this path is this level of difficulty. This path is this level of difficulty. This path has a different type of difficulty, and like they all are valid and they all were considered. Like, and it's unbelievable to make like an open world game like that well considered.
It's insane.
I was gonna say, does it feel like is there any sense of like a randomness to things? Like, does it just feel sort of odd?
Everything
like,
feels
like, oh, this is easy, this is impossible. Like
everything feels very explicitly designed from what I've seen in that overall world, and it's just considering the size of the world map, that's insane.
Unbelievable.
It's crazy that's the case. But you can tell it's explicitly
what would
designed.
You compare to the Breath of the Wild map? What would you say size wise? Like about the same, twice as big.
Let me look to see if there's actually because it feels bigger.
It feels bigger.
The big difference, I think, is that there's more things. Like Breath of the Wild,
you don't have the ability to do that glide. Like the paraglide in Zelda makes a huge difference. You get up on top of a mountain, you glide across half the continent,
and the ability to climb with your stamina in Breath of the Wild makes a big difference that way too, for how you can traverse.
Because you're mostly just like a heavy brute in this game, I would imagine, like in terms of like your agility of you can't like climb up stuff, right?
Right. Yeah, and I think that like you like the way that Breath of the Wild uses space, Elden Ring uses like enemies. So like
okay.
So that's why I think Elden Ring also feels more lived in. Like in addition to just having more like locations and more dungeons and more everything than Breath of the Wild. Like Breath of the Wild has like environment in the way that like Elden
It's
Ring.
a pretty
doesn't.
sparse game. It's
very
sparse at times.
but it's in a good way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
But
it also like really adds to that setting. Like when you see like a traveler, just like one lone traveler
Yeah.
like running down the road, you're like, hey, I'm going to talk to this person. If
Totally.
there's people running down the path at all times, you're just like, oh, okay, just a dumb NPC. I'm going to ignore them.
Right.
But like it compels you to like when something catches your eye. Yeah, and I think your analogy is perfect. Like using space the way, enemies are going to draw you in and or lure you away if in Elden Ring as opposed to just seeing something like a mountain or whatever in Zelda.
Oh yeah, it's like the smaller areas. So Randall, you made your way down. Which well was it?
Yeah. So Mistwood.
Mistwood.
So I have to set this up a little bit that John is basically my spirit guide for this game for Elden Ring because I've turned myself off of Twitter. I've just turned myself off of like a lot of online everything in general.
Smart,
good. Yeah.
Just a little self-containment at the moment. Just I don't have enough resource to allocate to everything right now, selfishly, I guess. But that happened. So, and on top of that, I play Elden Ring offline mode.
Yeah,
and that
baby.
was a conscious decision to play offline mode because online mode, I get, in some ways it's designed that way, right? Because there's all the blood stains and the hints and stuff, and like that can be fun, but I'm just not someone. I've never been someone that needs to be like, if I'm learning something new or you're trying to explain something to me, I don't want to be told everything about it. I want to learn it on my own for as much as I can and explore it myself and come to my own conclusions, right? I don't need to be explicitly told that something's good or bad or find it over here or hey, look over here.
Yeah.
Not to mention the trolls that are going to just be, it's,
Oh, yeah.
I'm with you. I'd play offline 100%.
So that's just kind of my mentality about those sort of things. So that carries over to Elden Ring where I this is too much. Like there's hints everywhere. Like this is getting into an issue where like I'm spending more time looking at those things than playing the game. And like that's not the game for me. It is for other people. That's fine. I get it. It's not for me. I turned it off, went offline. So all that to say, John is my hint person. So John tells me when something is worth checking out. And I really love that because it still allows me to cut through some of the inherent obtuseness of these sort of games.
Right.
Yes.
And be like, oh shit, yeah. Like, of course, there's this well. I had found this well early on in my experience, but I was a scaredy cat. It was like, oh, I'm really like going down far. It means there's going to be a mega monster. Things are too quiet down here. I'm going to get fucked up in 2 seconds. And I had probably a lot of runes that I could turn into a level within reason. I'm like, I'm out. Yep. And then and then you move on and you forget that you ever did it, right? Like, because it's so huge. So like, John's like, hey, have you checked out a well? Yeah, I'm like, what? A well? Is he talking like one of the wells? Like a little like, I'm thinking like a well, like get a pail of water well. I'm not thinking like it's this fucking big
dungeon.
Yeah, it's this like temple thing that you walk into and then you go on this like button on the floor and then this whole like part of the floor starts going down and it's like.
And it keeps going down. And it doesn't stop going down until there's a night sky on the like ground above you.
I saw some pictures of that. I remember thinking like this is a cool screenshot because I remember thinking like everyone keeps saying how gorgeous this game looks and it looks just kind of brown and bland to me. But I saw a picture of that and I was like, ooh, yeah, that's cool.
And it's like this little treat that they give you. And I'm like, And I know why John also likes this because immediately it evoked Risk of Rain 2 or like to me like Phantasy Star Online type of vibes in the way that the well works. And I'm like, oh boy, okay, I get this now. This is amazing.
And there's so many puzzle oh god, this game is so fucking good.
It's amazing.
It's
amazing. Yeah. And it's beautiful down there. Like you said, you see the stars and you like, there's kind of sort of a set path in those well, at least in the well that I went in, through the Mistwoods.
I mean, that was kind of the point I was going to make was that like, those are the closest to original Dark Souls like levels in that I feel like they are way more straightforward in their paths and like the puzzles that you do within them. Yep. So like, you have your cake and eat it too. Like there's so
but
much.
Just use more like dungeons
game.
in this case as opposed to like an open area a little bit. Like to me, I'm just picturing it as a dungeon because Randall said temple. I think it's I'm like water temple dungeon.
I think if you were to think of like a traditional Dark Souls level or area, like because they are massive in Dark Souls, so like kind of in that same scale.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're following this path, and then on top of that, like down there are all these like exotic materials that you've never gotten before. And I was like, oh my God, like everything is like a different version that I've never gotten before of this thing. And like none of the enemies are so, scary or intimidating that I couldn't take them out. Maybe that would have been the case if I would have gone in within that first 10-hour period when I first found it. But now that I'm 70 hours in, it's like, oh, cool. This is perfect.
So
I love it.
Yeah.
Also, the thing that I think the Elden Ring formula versus the availability of exploration and just like going around and kind of downtime and less like bottlenecks where you're like panicking constantly and like having to like engage in like tense combat. Like I have had the same build in every Dark Souls game like that I've ever played, and I have never strayed from that. I have always gotten an axe with some ability, like magic ability on it, so that I have at least 2 sources of damage, and then I have pyromancy. And that is how I have played literally every Dark Souls game, and I have refused to learn any other way to play them. And this game had enough breathing room between like major areas where I was like, let's fuck around and try some other weapons. Let's try some other like loadouts.
That's cool because I usually feel in the games like this, like I've already dumped enough stats into this, or I've gotten comfortable enough. You just feel like you've spent enough time leveling this up or whatever. You can't turn back.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, I remember I texted Randall where I was like, after I beat a boss with the twin blade, which was a completely different weapon type than an axe.
Big time.
And like, I basically do it as much as I do the axe at this point. Like, I'm like, I have like multiple weapon loadouts that I enjoy doing and feel equally proficient in. And like, I'm like, oh, well, this enemy is like weak against fire. I'm going to bring out this twin blade. Or, oh, this enemy is like resistant to it. I was like, I can switch up to a different weapon. Like, I don't have like all my eggs in one basket, and I can like alter my play style based on like, oh, this dungeon is like, oh, I need to be moving around more. Or is like, oh, I just need to hit hard and like keep going. It's like, God, I fucking love this game.
And even with more nuance, like the twin blade is, you have to dual hand that, right? So that is also your shield to block, right?
I've tried every weapon combination. I've done every weapon in dual, like, because you can dual wield and dual hand like each weapon. So like dual handing the combo for twin blade does a way more like 360. You're twirling it around your entire body, so it's great against like weak horde enemies. Whereas like if you dual hand an axe, you're just doing a much harder attack that can break poise on like an enemy, like break their combo in the middle of a thing.
Way more timing based at that point.
But if you have in 2 hands, like 2 twin blades, then you're just like, you're twirling around and jumping like you're Darth Maul or like a lightsaber. It's so good. It's so
that's
fun.
Amazing.
Oh, love
That's
it.
awesome.
That's amazing. I have a hard time picturing the characters in any Souls-related game moving as nimbly as Darth Maul, but
you can run and jump. You can you fight on horseback. Like,
is there a jump? There's a jump button.
There's a jump button in this,
because there's not jump in Dark Souls, right?
No,
I mean there is a
games?
jump mechanic, but it's not a button. What you
Not a
do
button.
is
It's like
you
Zelda
run,
style, like run off the edge, like old Zelda.
You have
style.
to let go of the run button. When you let go of the run button, you will jump.
No.
Yes.
Why are these games popular?
Right. No, but also then in like all like Dark Souls 1 through 3, there are platforming puzzles.
Yeah, I
where you
remember
have
that
to
was.
do that shit.
I remember watching Steve do this weird like gauntlet where like just jumping on these like moving like obstacle course like swinging blades back and forth. I was like, this
sucks.
This game is like this would even be lame if it was a Mario level and you had the ability to platform.
They put you in Prince of Persia without the controls, basically.
And having
Yeah,
a dedicated
exactly.
jump button turns those into. I'm
Like,
not
it's
going to
actually
go as
fun.
far as to say fun, but like they're doable. Like,
Yes.
But it can be fun. It can definitely be fun in platform or not in platforming. Sorry, in combat. Like I know, like when you can jump and like do an attack
Oh,
at
yeah.
the end of a jump and like get that slam.
Because
Like
then you
or
can
even
break
in, like a
poise
beat 'em up.
easier. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's so that can be pretty fun and dynamic. So, but when you're dual wielding or dual handing something, then you can't have like a shield or
right,
something like that. I'm assuming, yeah.
And like, you also can't go if you're dual handing. Then you can guard, but it's not as effective as a shield,
Right.
Because you're just holding the weapon up to guard. But
Some
if you
damage is probably going to bleed through at that point.
right?
Yeah,
But if you are
potentially.
dual wielding, then you can't guard. The guard button is then dedicated to attacking with both weapons simultaneously.
Interesting.
It's so
because it
fun.
feels like you could like cross them. You could like cross the two weapons and use them to block, maybe, but
But also,
not in the mechanics. But you can do that with any weapon. Any weapon.
any
You just
weapon,
pick,
and
I
they
wanna dual hand
almost
this.
if you are playing with two weapons if you are dual wielding of the same weapon type, it will have a bespoke dual wielding combo.
Oh, man, I haven't tried that
Nice.
yet.
It is
That's
so
sweet.
You know what's so super fun?
That's
dual wielding colossal weapons. You have you are so overloaded that you can't you're fat rolling at that point, so you can't
Right.
dodge anything. But
Right, yeah.
literally, a normal attack will break basically every enemy's poise. Like
That's kind of awesome.
I was like, oh man, if I was like dedicated to this, like I would just put like on the heaviest armor because I'm not dodging at this point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like I just would have like the max poise, and
Yeah.
I'm just like swinging the biggest weapons around.
Just
And
like a
it's,
Terminator out there, just slowly killing everything.
it's so
Yeah.
fun because like basically like unless you're against a boss, like you're breaking every enemy's poise in one hit, and it feels so good.
Oh, yeah.
It's so,
Breaking poise in general just feels amazing. So
Yeah.
to do that easily is super satisfying.
but if you miss and then you're caught,
then you're done.
You're
Yeah.
fucking dead. It's so.
yeah. I like how it's like, because I've definitely seen some like clips of the game where it almost feels like it's like a slapstick comedy, like just
Yes.
the way a character will die or the way like an enemy. Like there was one battle, I might have even mentioned this before when you guys talked about it on the podcast, but there was like this like knight, like it looked like super menacing. Like it was like, oh shit, this battle's about to get real, and then it just did this like backwards jump like right out the window and fell off of a cliff, and it was just like, oh, I guess enough of that, boss. It was just
Every so
hilarious the
often
way
you'll
it
see
worked.
that. Yeah.
Honestly, Dark
Yeah.
Souls is so fun. Like some of the shit that it does is like honestly the funniest stuff that happens in games. Like I think we've mentioned Patches before, who is a constant in the From Software games. And
Yeah,
he's just
yeah.
a sniveling little shit who always like is sometimes a vendor, but like most of the time just like is hanging out by a place, and he's like, hey, why don't you go there's some treasure over there, why don't you go there, and like tries to send you to your immediate death. And like if you then confront him about it, he's like, hey, I didn't mean anything by it, don't worry about it. Hey, here, how about have this item, don't kill me. But like you
Be
can
cool, be
summon
cool, guy.
Patches for as an NPC for a boss battle, and what happens is Patches loads in, and then immediately you get the notification Patches has returned to his world. And like you just like waste the time of summoning him, and he just disappears. And like the first time that happened,
That's
I
great.
just laughed so hard. I'm like, this
See you later,
fucking rules.
Poochie. Go back to
Sometimes
your
there's
home
like
planet.
sometimes a weird like a game being so hard too can sometimes just be funny. Like you're just like dying so much, you're just like this. Like when I was playing Bell Boomerang earlier, like I was just like, this is just hilarious. This is so fucking hard. It's funny.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Oh, man.
That's great.
I need to play more of this game. Man.
I've got so much I want to talk about in this game. Like I was gonna say, like, as the resident Dark Souls 2 defender of this podcast, like the fact that there are entire dungeons that are like predicated around you having a torch is I love the like how gingerly you have to go through these areas that are pitch black otherwise, and like you're like going into this next area is like, ah shit, there's 7 enemies in there, I'm like back out, I need to take off, like put this lantern on that gives me a little bit of brightness.
I was gonna ask if you had gotten the lantern, the belt lantern, but every time you talked about torch stuff, I'm like, I wonder if he's gotten that lantern.
Oh, I've got that lantern. Some of those places are still fucking dark. Like,
no doubt about it.
Like it is enough for combat where I'm like, yeah, anything that's going to be within my field of vision that I'm engaging. But like anytime I enter a new room where it's all pitch black, I'm like, no, I need that torch. I need to see a little bit further than like my immediate vicinity.
What they're giving you, yeah.
See, I just cheese it with my right stick clicks to find where enemies are potentially within reason.
Within reason, but Dark Souls loves putting enemies outside of reason. Like
that makes sense.
Around a corner or something.
Or buried
what is the right stick?
underground.
Is it like a sonar kind of like
it's kind of just like
it auto targets.
Yeah, auto target, aim on enemies within your field of view sort of thing.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Auto lock sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh man. What else?
Good stuff.
There's so many other things that I want to like. We haven't even gotten into like the story of it, which is also like I've really come to love like the whole From Software. Like Miyazaki basically tells the same story in literally every From Software game where, you know, there is a long dying world where, you know, reality is bending or unreliable, and your options basically are either to like have the world continue on as it is, usher in an era of rebirth within the system, or completely destroy the system and see what will happen there. And that is in every single game, and like he sticks to it each time. And like it's, I don't know, the part of it is just like so fascinating to see how like other NPCs in like these doomed worlds like deal with the fact is like, hey, we live in a living hell. Like, how you doing?
But I'm still a merchant. What you want, man?
Yep. Like,
I still got to make a living.
Is like, we live in a living hell, but I don't want to like change the world as it is. That's heresy. Don't like burn the system that traps us in this endless suffering. Like,
that's right.
What else are we gonna do? Try something
too much
new?
Ambition. Yeah.
Like, which may be why it's so resonant with people.
Yeah, that's true. I was gonna say, is there any like sense of hope in the game?
I mean,
as you play, like, do you feel like you're like chipping away, like, oh, there is a bright, like you're playing for something, or is it just like, hey, I'm gonna beat the game, but it's still gonna suck in the end?
Are the bad endings truly bad if you're breaking free from the cycle, endless, infinite cycles that they're all in? Like, someone was posting a lot of like really good screen caps of like, there's an area in Dark Souls 1 where it's not a necessary area. There's no like major boss even in that area. There's just like an optional side thing that is pretty hidden, like really difficult to get to, but it is, you go again, kind of like the well, you go underground, and like in this area that has an expanse of the underground, which is as high as the sky, and like feels like you're in a new area, and like you just see an endless expanse of these trees that have been growing there for probably millennia or like an infinite amount of time. And it's like, oh yeah, this has just been happening over and over and over again. And like, why is it different for like the time that I exist as this like the main character of this game? Like, what am I going to do? So like, it is revolutionary if you are the one to destroy this system, which has been going on basically for time immemorial. But like, so good.
The environmental storytelling is just fantastic in Elden Ring, and it seems like that carries backwards for the Souls games that I haven't
the whole
experienced.
series. Yeah, if you're a fan, like that seems to be a huge selling point for sure.
It is for me in Elden Ring.
It's doing it. Like I don't know. I feel like even when I was playing the Dark Souls games and like really enjoying the Dark Souls games, I don't think it resonated nearly as much as it has with this one. And I don't know if it's just because like I think there's more downtime where I'm actually enjoying the game as opposed to whereas in Dark Souls it's one of those games where Lauren would like put her hand on my shoulder and be like, why don't you take a break from this? Like you seem to be getting upset.
You don't look like you're having fun anymore. Yeah.
Put on Kirby. Kirby's a fun game where you are happy.
Yeah.
This game is not making you happy.
Nope. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Do you think there's any part of that too? Because to the best of my knowledge, I think when you've played the Dark Souls stuff, you were not playing it like at the time that it was kind of new and somewhat relevant. Do you think there's some of that, like, not that you're like constantly going online and talking about Elden Ring, but just in general, like, oh, it's in the zeitgeist right now, and it's kind of, sometimes it's lame, but it can just be like cool to experience something while it's relevant, kind of, you know.
And I had
just nice.
100% like resigned myself to the fact that I wasn't going to play this game, and then DJ was like, I think you can download this, and then it absorbed my entire life.
I think we literally went, I think on one episode of the podcast, you were like, yeah, I'm just not going to be able to play it, so no biggie.
Like
and then the next episode was like, hey, so I downloaded it on my PS4 and I've played like 70 hours now.
It's over.
Like, it's amazing.
This is it.
Truly.
And it's still running okay on the PS4, like now that you're deeper into the game, because I know some of those games, like once you start like buffing and leveling up and stacking upgrades, I guess it's not like a roguelike where you're like stacking upgrades like that or anything, but there are some games that I play where like the deeper you get in and like the more things start stacking and getting more complicated in the menus and whatever, it's like, oh, this game is chugging.
I haven't actually checked what the max level is in Elden Ring, because I know it's like 800 usually for
Jesus.
the Dark Souls games.
800.
Jeez.
Which is unbelievable. 713 is the max level in Elden Ring.
How do they decide this stuff?
It's
it makes me think,
the
like, part of me
numbers-
makes me think it's totally random, but then like when you guys are talking about how well balanced and how well it feels, it like it really makes me think they have some kind of crazy like calculus going on where they're like, okay, this is the max level that will feel perfect for if you're at the final boss, and you really, you know, I feel like there's a reason it's 713.
I feel like it's arbitrary though. Oh God, I didn't even mention.
Or at least it's all relative. Like maybe it's not like 713 isn't important, but everything else is relative to that in a way that it is meaningful or something.
So
I don't know.
the leveling in Dark Souls games is also really weird in that it's front loaded and like exponential, like and normally like in all RPGs, like, oh, it costs more as like you level up, so you're not using the same amount of EXP, but also there are severe diminishing returns, I think, for each stat. So like once you level up a stat to, I think, like 40 or something, then like it also takes multiple levels for that individual stat to increase, actually.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So like it's there's some nonsense even beyond that. Like no player is getting to level 713. Like
I am no player.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's got to be somebody out there.
I mean, but it takes
But yeah, that's not like a stand. You're not going to get there if you're playing the game and going for, even if you're going for 100%.
Even if you're
probably
grinding,
not going to end up doing that.
You're not doing that. Like if you get every stat to 40, which
like what level are you at roughly, if you had to guess?
160, something like that.
Okay, yeah. So,
shit.
but that feels huge. But yeah, you're like not even a third of the way there. About a third of the way. No, yeah, not even a third.
Yeah, it's wild.
Quarter.
It's dwarfing me at this point.
Yeah, what are you at, Randall?
I think I was last at like 73 or 4 or something like that.
Yeah,
that rings a vague bell. Yeah,
I've been doing bird glitch.
I need to know where that place is. I don't know where it is.
You got to go online briefly.
I don't want to go online.
It's a place. It's a place, because when you said bird glitch, I just think like missing number. Swim up and down the coast and get some rare candy.
There's a cliff that you can get to. And you have to run past a lot of enemies that are over leveled, and you can, once you are on top of that cliff, there is a site of grace literally right there, and you can aim down at the like way far away with a bow or a crossbow, and one of those gross looking crows from is it Cadia? And one of those is down there, and you aim it, and it runs off the cliff, and you get 11,000 runes.
Man.
And then you missing number for sure.
And then you reset at that site of grace, and you do it all over again. And you get 11,000 runes every 10 seconds, and you cut out a lot of bullshit of like, oh, I don't have enough. Because normally what you would do is, I'll go and respec my class and like put all of my stats into intelligence so that I can wield this. I'm like, I'm gonna go kill 100 birds, and now I have enough intelligence to wield this weapon.
Nice.
It cuts down on bullshit. I typically now do it like when I'm like close to leveling up, and I'm like, I just want to get this over with, and I can restart at the next boss with 0 runes. Like,
because you don't want to risk that. Exactly. You're like, this feels like a boss encounter, and I'm so close to leveling up, and I'm gonna lose everything in the boss zone if I do this, and that sucks.
Or when you accidentally walk into an area where it doesn't look like there's a boss going to be there, and then suddenly a fog gate pops up, and you're like, shit. Well, looks like I'm doing this until I either die twice or beat him.
Okay, I'm going to find the bird farm. I did search this once before, and I was like, well,
there's
you have to be...
steps.
Yeah,
that's a lot of
you
steps.
needed to talk to this NPC at the beginning of the game, and then you did this, and it's better if you're online. But it
almost sounds like going for like the like those weird items in Ocarina of Time, where it was like, if you got like the Mega Master Sword or whatever it was, exactly. You had to talk to like every person in order and.
You best believe I got the Goron sword.
Oh, I never did that. I think I tried at one point, but nice. I never got it.
Yeah,
I had
much
I played
like
it.
Elden Ring. You can't wield a sword when you're using the big Goron sword because you're dual handing.
Yeah,
I do. I've definitely played it at my friend's house or my cousin's or something because I do remember like wielding that huge sword for a brief moment, but I definitely know it wasn't on my cartridge.
Take that, Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, for real. For real.
All right, should we call it for today?
Yeah.
Enough Elden Ring there.
We've been talking for
we'll come back.
45 minutes.
Yeah, no, I'm glad. I'm glad we got some more Elden Ring in though, because it's been a little while since we've chatted about that.
I'm gonna be talking.
I know
about
Randall
it again.
hasn't.
I know I am.
I'm gonna play more of this video game.
I love when we have these ongoing sagas, especially if we can like whether it's like the basketball stuff. I was actually cracking up the other day in the when I was doing a stream. I might have mentioned this to you, John, when we recorded last week, but like I put the music from the Save It for the Cast things like just on like in a loop in background because there was those songs I made for E-, so I just put those on in a loop because like I don't want to get any copyright strikes or anything, so I'm like I'll just put these on that I made so I don't have to worry about anything. Yep. And then I had like the slow like mellow music on in the background while I went to like run to the bathroom or get some coffee or something.
Yeah.
And Arpy was hanging out in the chat and he was like, "Oh man, I need to hear some basketball talk going right now." Like as soon as he heard that music, I was like, yes, I love it. I love it.
That is good music. The music, the interstitial music that you use is very good. That's good music.
It sets the tone for like I really like how it gives each like the regular episodes and that episode have a totally different energy and it feels appropriate. It feels like it makes sense that we're not like introing it proper. Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. It worked out way better than I thought. Way better than I thought. That was the pause menu music.
Ooh,
that boo doo 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 doo. I was going for that like Mario kind of percussion. It's fun. That was fun to work on. That was fun to work on the music for that. And the sound effects too was actually almost even more fun because I was like, I'm going to make every sound in this game with this one synth plugin that I downloaded.
Nice.
So I was like, I'm going to just do all pitch shifting and just weird stuff. And yeah, it was fun.
You did a good job.
Thanks. I definitely want to try to work on a next time we host a game jam. I'm gonna actually try to be on a team as well and do some music at the very least.
If I had like thought of this before the game jam had started, I was like, it would be kind of nice to do like, here's like an open source like Pursuing Pixels like sound library of like.
I thought about doing something like that too, or being like, hey, if anybody needs a song, you can use one of these chiptune riffs I made or something.
That would be sweet.
Yeah.
And then it would be cute to like see is like, this sound pops up in like most of these games.
Mm-hmm.
Or, like,
yeah.
That would just
How
be
is it applied?
thing.
Yep.
Yeah, that could almost be like one of the challenges, like that. But you then, have to use this in the.
But then, like, I kept seeing people as like, "Hey, anyone need a sound designer for those?" Like, I don't want to be like, "Yeah, look, use one of my sounds." Like when someone's like actually going to dedicate their time to like making something for a specific project, I was like, "Nah."
I was so tempted because Securus had mentioned that he was looking for a composer at one point, and like he made that like a Temple of Kashteki, that like precision platformer. Mm-hmm. Like Securus makes awesome stuff, so I was just like, I was so tempted when he was like, I'm looking for a composer, and I was like, but I was like, you know what? I was like, I've never hosted a jam before. I was like, I just want to focus on I was like, there's already way more people signed up than I anticipated, so I was like, I really want to just make sure I don't make this suck or don't do a good job hosting it, which I don't really feel, I mean, I did a lot of stuff, but for the most part, it was all fun for me to do. But I have some of the devs were like, oh man, I've done some jams before that were terrible. And like, they were like, this is the best jam I've ever participated in. And I'm like, to me, I just felt like I just did. It's not like I looked into how to run a game jam. I just like did some, just put some effort into it, I guess. But the only game jams I ever pay attention, or I shouldn't say the only, but the ones I see are usually the ones that have a little more popularity. So usually those have the same kind of love and care put into them. So to me, it was just like, okay, this is how you do it. You do it like you care about it.
Yeah.
Because I guess like some people would say like, oh man, I was like entered this jam and then the host like literally just never responded to anyone's questions or anyone's anything. It's like, what's the point of hosting it if you're not gonna whatever? And those streams were so fun for like with all the developers hanging out. It was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Pretty cool times. Definitely looking forward to the next one.
Oh, nice.